This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio, the Wednesday Twilight Show with Morgan Whitfield and Todd Brennan. It is Wednesday, June 19th, and tonight we have guest Kat Chowdhury with us to discuss the preseason. The school year is almost over. What can we do now to make next year even better? Please text in with your thoughts. We all want to know and
This
see
is
you
Teachers
crawl
Talk
to the
Radio,
finish line.
and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Okay, thank you for that, Morgan. I'm Todd, and I'm also in the same situation as a lot of people. I'm currently looking at preparing myself to join a new school. I'm currently head of English in Abu Dhabi and staying within the city and looking to pastures new. Morgan, do you want to speak briefly about your next journey and why this is so relevant to you in particular before we introduce Kat?
Yeah, sure. So I am actually at a transition point, and I think a lot of teachers are in my position right now where I am starting at a new school, in a new role, and even in a new country. And I've moved jobs before, and I know that feeling of excitement and trepidation, what that means to start something new, and you kind of want to get going right away, but you're not in a position yet to do so. I think that every single year we kind of want to begin anew and make sure that we are getting that fresh start. But the best way to do that is to kind of use the gain time that we have now to actually get off on the best footing. Todd, I know that you're in a similar situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that kind of mixture of excitement and trepidation, the fear of the unknown, the opportunity to sort of prove yourself again. I don't know why I've got this obsession. I always want to see the documentation. I always want someone to send me a lot of policies, and I'd read them, but would they mean anything without actually being in the building? You know, I want to know people's names, just really silly things. And I think sometimes when we're starting in a new setting, we can get really excited about trying to know everything and trying to have as much knowledge about what's about to come as possible, when in reality, it's the pertinent things that will sort of arrive at your doorstep once you're in the building. But that's why we've got Kat here, right? Because Kat is someone who's just the other side of this experience. She's phenomenally experienced deputy head of teaching and learning across a number of schools, I think. May have got that wrong, Kat, please correct me. Head of English and head of media studies, 13 years experience in the education sector. Predominantly in UK curriculum schools, is my understanding, Kat, again, sorry. And regular blogger. I think people will probably know you best from your book, Kat, and your blog. I might be wrong there, but I think that's probably where people will know you from previously. But in this particular area, you're the other side of it 1 year, and you are now sort of, I suppose, reflecting back on that year, but you're also helping others to integrate into new schools. So any corrections there? I always want to say in these introductions, general good egg, which seems silly, but there we go.
No, you did a brilliant job. Well done.
Okay, good. I'm glad I didn't get anything too wrong. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about moving into a new role and, people's individual experiences from that, but also, I suppose, from your point of view, from a sort of systems type of overview, because obviously you're introducing lots of people into your schools now, and you're seeing both sides of the coin. So do you want to sort of introduce us to your journey a little bit with starting a new school?
Yeah, I think like you, I was very much wanting to know everything, wanted all the policies, wanted to read up, wanted to know like what everyone's role was. I think when you are starting a new school, they're quite reluctant to give you that information straight away until you're in the building. And that's probably a good thing because you deserve the holiday. I think, you know, when you're in that transition from one school to a next, you need that time to kind of reflect and slow down and kind of have that break. I think we all deserve that break. But at the same time, what really helped me was having lots of like team calls and kind of just getting to know the team before I joined. And really understanding what your role is or what your role's going to be. Because, you know, when you get a job offer and you see it on paper, it doesn't really always tell you exactly what that's going to look like in practice as well. So kind of getting your head around what your new role is going to be. I remember kind of going in on the first day and, you know, everyone knows each other. And everyone's like discussing their summer holiday and what they did, and you kind of just sit there, kind of, you want to make a good impression, but at the same time it's a little bit awkward. But I think it was very important for me to kind of observe and see, you know, how different people tick and what the different roles were and you know, ease myself into it. But also, I'm a very proactive person as well. So being able to see, well, you know, in that first SLT meeting, okay, what are the strategic plans? What are we going to be doing this year? Getting that excitement and then being able to be proactive and getting stuck in. It was really exciting for me moving, because I'd been in my last school for 6 years. So it was a long time for me to then move to another school. And I think, you know, you get into your comfort zone, don't you? So getting out of that comfort zone initially and finding your feet is a scary jump, but it was worth it, and I really enjoyed it. And now that I'm on the other side and I'm thinking about next year, I'm really excited now about, you know, where this is going to go next. And it's been a really incredible year.
Yeah, and I just wanted to pick you up on something that maybe seemed quite small in saying that, but you're right. It's that first, even those first conversations where everyone, you know, they've got their banters very established. They know exactly, you know, what sort of things are okay to say in front of certain people. And you end up, there's this sort of really reserved version of yourself. I always think it's kind of a bit like a first date. And you're like, let me just show them how amazing I am first before I show them how weird I am. maybe that's revealing too much about myself there. And
no, I think that is definitely true. It takes that kind of initial, yeah. Who can I have my banter with? Who can I, you know, who's the serious one? There's always different roles in a school. There's the serious one. There's the silly one that you can have a laugh with. There's the one that you can go and cry with in the corner somewhere. So it's sussing out who those different people are, and because you will rely on those different people and those different traits throughout the year. So definitely you are a little bit more reserved in the first couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
It's so funny. Oh, sorry.
Go on. No, go on, Morgan.
I was just thinking, I think it's really interesting actually, because I've been reading a lot of kind of management books about the first 100 days and what you're supposed to do in the first 100 days when you start a new job. And I think with teachers, it's really funny because our first 100 days kind of begins right now. So we have to kind of, as soon as we arrive, that very first day, even during inset, a lot of us have to be on and know what we're talking about. We have to be ready to kind of be on a show on air that very first day of school in front of all of our students. We need to be ready to go with the curriculum and the lesson planning and the resources and the tech. Everything has to be set up. I think that we look at things like our gain time, and it seems kind of obvious to say we're going to be doing curriculum review, we're going to be doing policy review. But I was just looking over these like first 100 days. I wanted to know what you guys thought over the kind of recommendations that most managers would put forward for the first 100 days that actually maybe we should be doing right now as teachers, because our first 100 days is actually about, for everyone else, would be 60 days in. So here are the recommendations. I have about 10 of them. Okay.
Yeah, I think There was a
Oh, go
book
ahead.
actually linked to what you're saying that I read, and it was so it was I can't remember who wrote it now, but it was called the First 100 Days, and it
Yeah.
was a leader, a school leader, but he also wrote the book with a football manager as well. And it was
Yes.
really
Yeah.
funny because it was so similar to even like football managers. They're still going through that same process, that first 100 days in a role. So regardless if you're in education or whatever industry you're in, it is the same concept of how important those first 100 days are.
And I think one of the things they first say is do your research. And I think before you start a job, when you're just in the interview process, you end up doing a lot of research. But the research seems very kind of mechanical and clinical that you do about the school. I think that what you and Todd were talking about to begin with is the very first thing that you have to understand is you have to learn the culture of the school. So if you are new coming in, learning the culture is actually pretty key. So what is the mission and the values, but also what is the professionalism? Like who are the key contacts? Like there's something about understanding the workflow and communication flow of a new place that's actually pretty important.
I think you have to get the balance right as well, because I was given the advice, don't try and plan to, when you're going to a new school, don't try and plan too much, because once you get in, the likelihood is that's all going to change, and or they do something slightly different, or they've already got something in place. So it's kind of finding that balance of, what can I bring to the table, but also what's already there, and how can I help enhance that, or how can I work with what they already have as well. And sometimes you don't know that until you get into the new job and into the new school, and you see what those systems are.
Agreed. And I think there's a
Yeah.
tendency as well to sometimes try and not show off, but sort of show what you can do as the first maneuver. And I think the first thing maybe is just to fit in. Can you just see what we've been doing and what's been working for us? And then once you've kind of built up that trust with your colleagues, your teammates, to extend the sporting analogy, then you've got that opportunity then to kind of to show everything you can do. But that might take a month, it might take a week. We're talking about 100 days. I think there are some settings where, Morgan, you alluded to coming into a new school as a leader. I think probably asking a lot of questions as a leader is a really good start point. Whereas, as a teacher, perhaps it's about fitting into that culture, fitting in that community. And as you say, seeing what is already in existence. What do you think, Kat? Am I off the money there? Do you think you really should be going in and showing all your best manoeuvres and why they've
No, I
employed you,
think
how great you are? Or do you think there's an element of just, can I
I
just see
think
how
it
you do things?
depends. It all depends on the situation. I think there are times when you need to go in and be a little bit reserved. So, like you said, like suss out the situation, see what's already there. You don't want to go in to kind of guns blazing and I'm going to fix everything and I'm going to change everything, because you want to be part of that culture that because when you have that interview process, it's a two-way system. Like you're being interviewed, but also you're almost interviewing them as well to see if that's the right fit for you. So you've already kind of made that judgment that, what, I've chosen, that I want to be part of this community. So again, that fine line, you don't want to go in and trying to be the savior of something that might not even need saving. But at the
Yeah,
same time, you don't want to be so quiet that they think, well, what is she here for? Like you do want to showcase your skill sets, and you do want to kind of I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like I don't want to show off initially, but then at the same time, I don't want to get overlooked either. So it's finding that balance.
I think it's
and
so funny because I think you were both like really hitting something there that you don't want to come in and reinvent any wheels. Schools are really complex ecosystems, and understanding those complex ecosystems takes time. There's different, like I said, there's different platforms that schools use. There's different organizational structures that schools have. I remember one headmaster telling me that the most important thing he did when he started was that he did a one-on-one with every single staff member in the school. So he took the time, he got a great big notebook, And he had just a brief conversation, 15 to 20 minutes with every single staff member, just to touch base and see what they thought the school priorities were, what they thought strengths and weaknesses were. And it was really, really useful because he got a complete overview of the school and he got a complete kind of idea of each of the staff members, which coming in as a new headmaster was really useful. But I think anyone can take that advice. Having one-on-ones with people and kind of taking those opportunities to get to know them can be really, really powerful and help you understand exactly what's going on in that school better, but also make a really great connection and build rapport with the people that you're working with.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you very quickly get a sense of that culture through talking to people, through talking to the teachers, through talking to, site staff, through talking to the nurses. You very quickly kind of get that sense of that feeling within the school. So I think that's really important, of being visible and talking to as many people as you can, and letting them see you as well, and introducing yourself.
There is something about just walking around. Yeah.
I think as well that the classic one that I would always advise someone new starting is, don't mention the last school. Leave it for a little while before you mention the last school. There's nothing worse than someone starting going, oh yeah, but at my old place we used to. Well, you left the old place. There may have been a reason you left the old place. If there were some great things from there, we'd love to hear about them. But I think give that maybe not 100 days, but give it a little while. Because the number of people I think in the first few meetings can get it really wrong. You talked about being reserved. Yeah, definitely. I remember we had a trainee teacher a long time ago who came in and they were discussing star signs in the staff room, and someone said they were born in November and asked what star sign that meant to him, and before anyone could answer, he blurted out, "A lot of serial killers are born in November." And he'd lost the room. In like the first 10 minutes, and we were all just sort of sat there like, he's nervous, it's fine. But just of all the things to blurt out in the first 10 minutes of meeting, everyone who's responsible for helping you to learn the job, it was definitely up there with one of the stranger things.
Yeah. So I remember when I started my old school, my first day, I was just like so eager and so like bright-eyed and talking about teaching and learning, and everyone who knows me now, like, they know that I'm just a nerd, and I guess that's one of my quirks. But I can imagine those people who didn't know me at the time probably thought, who on earth is this chick? Like, why is she sat here talking about teaching and learning when she's just, in the classroom? She's a nobody.
Yeah. And 100%, eventually I'm sure they realised that you're much more than that, and that actually your geekery was going to be useful for them, might save them some time down the road, etc., etc. But I'll go back to my analogy, that first date thing, you can show your weirder, more eccentric bits as time goes on, but I've definitely done that as well, Kat, by the way. Just let's go confessional. I think on my first day at my last school, I said something like, I just love poetry. And despite it being a room full of English teachers, they all just went, oh.
Oh, no. He's one of them.
Oh, no. Yeah, exactly. So I think we've sort of covered worst case scenario of starting a new school. You put your foot right into it. And I don't think that's irretrievable. And perhaps we can talk about that a little bit more. But what's the best case scenario, do we think? You're entering a new school, you're joining a new set of colleagues and a new set of systems. What can be the exciting bits, the bits that go really well in that process?
Yeah, for me it was exciting because I moved to a completely different setting in terms of, I went from a British curriculum school to American curriculum school, so it was all new to me. A different kind of style of school completely. It was exciting because I was out of my comfort zone, and I was embarking on a brand new journey, and I felt like I have an opportunity here to really have an impact and work with some incredible people who are like-minded. And, like I said, this year has been incredible for me because I've met some really amazing staff members who, at the end of the day, their goal is to help the students. And when you find a school like that where you really fit in, and you can see that everyone is moving in the same direction, it is refreshing. It's really nice, and to feel part of that community. We are a family, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of it.
I think that you've both kind of like underlined that you do choose a place for a reason, and then it's kind of finding out what that reason is while you're there. So it's kind of covering that. What I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm just going to let us have a little word from our sponsors.
Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalized social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Empowering education with Easy4U, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy4U, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easy4u.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out! Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading! Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
This is Teachers Talk Radio. And this is Teachers Talk Radio.
Hey guys, sorry, we're just having a little problem with our sound there, but welcome back. We are discussing pre-gaming. So how do we set up our next season for success with Kat Chowdhury? And we did have a few comments in the chat. Todd, did you want to address some of them?
Yeah, so I really liked Michelle's question. She's asked here, why shouldn't we be ourselves straight away, or am I missing the point? And then I'm not great with emojis, but I think that's a very scared emoji. So yeah, Michelle, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's really nice to be able to ease into being yourself. And perhaps for me, it's that perhaps first impressions can be always quite odd. So I would be a little bit worried about coming straight out with, here's the full blown version of me, perhaps a diet version, you know, the low fat, the low sugar version for the first initial phase. But you're right, for some people that just wouldn't fit and wouldn't suit. And there shouldn't be this terrible fear around opening up to who you are. That's probably a personal response more than anything. Kat, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, and I think like anyone who meets me knows from the get-go, as soon as you start talking teaching and learning, I am like I'm well, I can't even think of the word. I know I'm a nerd. I know I am, and I know that I will talk for hours and hours and hours about teaching and learning, and I can't hide that even if I tried to. So I think, yeah, there are quirks that we shouldn't hide, and we should showcase who we are. Um, I think it's not hiding who you are. It's not faking who you are. I think in the content we were talking in is, sometimes there are colleagues that you might be more comfortable around than others. There might be things that you might not say that's as professional, come across as professional as you'd want it to. There are, you have your colleagues that you can let loose and just, have your moment of, verbal diarrhea to, but then you wouldn't necessarily be like that to your principal, for example. So it's finding out where to act and how to act around certain people, but definitely not hiding who you are. I think you should 100% be yourself. And, you would have been employed because they liked what they saw in you initially. So, yeah, don't hide who you are in any way. I definitely don't hide those quirks. I'm just more kind of conservative about what I say and who I say things to initially. That is just kind of those first couple of weeks. It's just kind of finding your feet and finding those people.
Yeah, maybe
Because,
don't
like I said,
mention
you will
the
rely on
idea
those
that you.
people.
Yeah, maybe don't mention the idea that
You'll
your line manager might be a serial killer, but other than that, you're pretty good.
Yeah, because you'll rely, like I said, you'll rely on those people throughout the year. I know who I can go cry to. I know who I can go have a little laugh and a giggle with. I know who I need to go to if I want to, have a serious, advice or a professional conversation. You find those people that you can go to when you need them, because we all know, being in education, it's like an emotional roller coaster throughout the year. And it's important that you have those people and that you can go to. And yeah, you just want to make sure you're going to the right people for the right things at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. But really good question, because I think we probably were veering a little bit more down to the hide all your eccentricities, but not quite what we meant there. But so thank you for that question, Michelle. Really good. Let's get into I was going to say the weeds, but the practicalities, because it's the bit that the bit I get really excited about, Kat. What sort of questions would you be asking and telling people to ask about handover? What sort of information do you think people should be seeking out, or potentially as well, we could cover what they're leaving behind at their last place, because I often find it's the place that you've just left as well. You start worrying about that place as well, but maybe we're getting too nebulous there, perhaps. So let's stay with just the current place. What information would you be looking for in handover, and what information would you suggest people ask for?
I think I'd want to know kind of the what's going well, the even better ifs, what, especially going into leadership, where are the kind of areas that you think the school needs to move forward in? Where do you think the strengths currently are? Because then when you go in, you can be looking for those things and you can then see it for yourself. And just kind of, where are you at with those kind of strategic processes and knowing. You learn a lot, I think, especially if you have a school that gives you, a handbook, and like I said, you get those policies and things like that, so you can read things like that. But I like to know the kind of nitty gritty and find out specifically, where's the school moving and what's that vision? What is that vision? What are you trying to achieve? Because then I can start thinking, well, how can I be a part of that? How can I help? How can I utilize my expertise in that role?
It's so funny, Kat. I just am doing a whole bunch of handover meetings. So I had a handover meeting yesterday, I had one today, and I have another one tomorrow. And then last week I was doing handover for the person who's taking over my job right now. And it's really fascinating because you want to get, as soon as I get into those handover meetings, I just want all the documents. I want to read every policy. I want to get kind of my hands on the data. I kind of immediately want to know who I should talk to. And I go into kind of fix it mode, like, oh, there's this problem. Well, I would fix it like this, or I could do it like this. And sometimes it's about slowing down and kind of thinking, well, overall, what is the big picture and the portfolio of this role? What are the big things that you should pay attention to, and not get lost in the minutia of how to do something, but instead kind of pay attention to like the bigger picture things that are with this role. If you're a teacher, it could be that there's going to be a change in exam board next year, so we should be really looking at curriculum planning. If you're going into leadership, it could be that there's going to be a big change in training that you need for pastoral, for instance. So there's all these things that you kind of have to have an overview of. So handover meetings are really useful that way, to kind of get an idea of what you're going to be walking into. And it also, if you're asking questions, also it kind of is a way for you to kind of say, I would like you to leave these really big, like, instruction manuals for me that I might need. So can you do a screencast of a video of how you would do this reporting system, for instance? So all of those things can be really, really important when we're looking at kind of taking on a new role.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes...
Go on, sorry. You go, Todd.
No, I was just going to say a lot of that comes down to institutional memory, and a lot of it comes down to succession planning. And something like succession planning, you haven't always known that your next move was down the road, was around the corner. Like you said, Kat, you were at your previous school for 6 years. I'm just doing my handovers at the moment after 6 years. Wasn't really thinking that it was time just yet. But then, things happen, opportunities come up, and all of a sudden you're thinking, well, that's perhaps not where I'd want it to be in terms of institutional memory and succession planning. So your document then becomes fuller. You hope that you inherit handbooks like that. But I think earlier, Kat, you were talking about asking lots of questions and being open. I think that's a big part of starting as well. Going in and just talking to the right people and asking lots of things.
Yeah, I think not being afraid to ask questions is really important. Even if you think it's a silly question, like there are no silly questions. I would rather ask a silly question than go the whole year not really knowing or understanding properly. And I think, sometimes you go in and you don't want to ask the silly questions because you don't want to come across like you don't know. You want to seem like you have all the answers, but it's a learning journey. And I think, asking those questions are really important. And yeah, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask any questions.
It's really funny because coming back to what we were saying before, the advice that I was given today in one of my handover meetings was, we're all human first. So let us know how we can help you settle in. Let us know who we could set your kids up on a play date with. And I think there's something about the social fabric, the community that you build within a school, it's really unique because so much of your family and your life is kind of tied up in that school. So I think remembering that you're human first and that you need to settle yourself in and your family in when you're moving to a new place is pretty key. And then the job itself, the logistics of it, like I said before, the idea that school is a really complex ecosystem. Every single school does things a little bit differently. They have a slightly different structure. They have different processes. Their policies, while they might be very similar in philosophy, they might be very, very different in procedure. And trying to navigate that, if you are learning a new MIS, for instance, knowing what that MIS is now and kind of getting ahead of the game by watching a few YouTube videos and how to navigate it can be really, really useful. It can be really important if you're taking on a new teaching load. You want to take a look at that timetable and have a complete understanding of what your days will look like, what your heavy and light days will be, and how you're going to be balancing that. So I think getting that key information that's going to kind of be your blueprint for living for the next few months can be really helpful. And then preparing yourself mentally for and envisioning what that path will look like every single day that you're going to be traveling can really aid you in settling in, I think, when you come in August and September.
I think actually that was one of my questions before I moved to my new school was talk me through, give me an example of your day, like, because the person I was in contact with that was the role I was going into. So I was, I wanted to know, like, on a day-to-day base, like, what is a typical day for you? What kind of things do you do? Just to kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like, what my role was going to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think all of this, the added complication, we've obviously all done international moves. All of it becomes extremely more complicated when you consider you're moving even towns within the UK. As ridiculous as it sounds, when I moved from Brighton to Worthing to teach, I found that process quite hard. But Kat, what about people who are coming out, to a new country, or even to a new area within a country? What sort of things do you think can they do in advance? We're calling this the sort of pre-season period. Is it looking for the cafe that they like, or what is it that you think is the priorities for those people?
Well, when I first moved out to the UAE, obviously going from the British, I went from British curriculum into another British curriculum school, but it was international exam board. So I had to get my head round the exam board. So logistically, for the school wise, I spent my summer kind of going through the exam spec and what I'll be teaching and the success criteria. But I was also very fortunate because my school had a buddy system. So I got given a buddy who's now one of my best friends out here, who, our kids are now grown up together, and she's been my rock. But I had that contact beforehand. So, that summer before I moved out, I remember her calling me, and we were on the phone for about 2 hours, and her giving me the lowdown of what to expect. And so that's really funny. So that's something that we're doing currently, is reaching out, getting our teachers to reach out to our new staff and having that buddy system, so that at least there's that someone that they can be in contact with on that first day. They can go directly to that person. And those questions that you perhaps don't want to ask the principal, you don't want to ask, your SLT about, but, you want to know the lowdown of life in the UAE and where to go and what to wear and things like that. Having that person where you can ask those questions is really, really important. And it definitely helped me. In hindsight, there are dresses that I wish I hadn't thrown away, thinking I wouldn't be able to wear them. But, it's a learning curve. But I think that was really, really helpful. I remember as well, in the first week that we arrived, I think it was like the second day, SLT had arranged for all the new staff to go to IKEA and meet up for a breakfast in IKEA. And again, it was just so nice to kind of start that bond that they created for us, because it is scary coming to a different country. And it's a big leap. You're leaving your family behind. You're leaving everything that you've known behind. You're stepping into the unknown, and you can do as much research as you want, but until you get here, you don't really, know what it's going to be like. And although it's not for everyone, and, some people do a year, they do their 2 years, they go home. A lot of people, this becomes home to them. So, it's a fantastic place to come and be. But I think, would I have had that same courage if I hadn't had my buddy to kind of lean on in those first couple of weeks? I don't know.
Yeah, and with social media now, if your school aren't perhaps, that might be a new idea for some schools. If you're not au fait with that, there's plenty of opportunities for networking in advance. That I think, like you've said there, that having that friend, that sort of future friend maybe, and initial sort of person to bounce ideas back and forth from is really useful. I remember, like I said, even that move from, I think it's about 20 kilometres, Brighton to Worthing to teach. I remember thinking, are Worthing kids like Brighton kids? And as silly as it is, something like, what do the kids look like? Are they quite tall? You find yourself asking all these silly questions in your head, and without that person to kind of bounce ideas off, they can start to become quite serious questions. Yeah, like I really wanted to know what the music scene was like for kids. Are they as into music? Because that was a good reference point in Brighton if you were teaching there. So yeah, really good advice, Kat. And
I
Morgan,
think
you're just about to make.
I bought so much furniture from strangers that I hadn't even met via Facebook before I'd even got out here. So like
Yeah,
people were putting it in storage ready for me to arrive. Yeah, there's lots of groups that you can join which are really useful.
absolutely. And Morgan, you're just about to make what I would consider quite a scary leap, but I know you're really excited about. But you're about to make a move to Vietnam. What sort have you done? Have you taken some of Kat's advice in advance, or is this sort of chiming with you?
Well, I think so. I've had a few big moves. So I moved from Canada to teach in the UK. And I think I was so unprepared for that big move. I really did kind of learn as I arrived. And I feel like this move from the UAE to Vietnam, I feel so much more prepared. And I think it's because the school has done such a great job of onboarding. So when you move to a new country or to any new school, it's kind of the onboarding can be really key. But right now, what I was really amazed at with my new school was the fact that they built an entire induction website. So it's all the things that you would need to know about the area, about moving to this new city. So really, really practical things like insurance. Where's the closest place to go to for the dentist? Here are the doctors and the local hospitals that you could go to. So really, really practical things about like what you should download, what apps on your phone you should use, how to get around the city. Really, really useful life things. But then also it goes into the complete curriculum planning and mapping. It's really, really great because it looks at the resource gathering that you should be doing. It gives you an overview of the data for the different year groups, which is really useful. It had action plans for the next school year, so department action plans, which are there, and every single school policy that you might want to use. So the school policies ranging from inclusion to teaching and learning to assessment to behavior management. Having all of those right at my fingertips now to look over, I found that really, really calming because it made me kind of understand the context of the school that I would be moving into. So the fact that I've had all that and I've had it so early makes me feel ridiculously prepared for this big move. And I find it makes me feel like the school that I'm moving into, they're very, very competent. They are anticipating any needs that I might have so that I can really just start running as soon as I arrive in August.
Do you think there are any negatives to that level of detail?
I think it can be overwhelming. I'm not going to say that it's not overwhelming, but I think what was really nice is that I've also had handover meetings, and the handover meetings have been the opposite. They've been very much asking about me as a person first. So what do I want to get out of the role? Like, what am I feeling? Like, this is the portfolio. What appeals most to me? What are my ideas? And that kind of personal attention, it kind of takes the pressure off. And they've actually said the pressure is not on you to come in and do something big. You just need to get settled in first. And when they're saying that to you and you have all this plethora of resources to explore, this treasure trove of information about the school that you're going to, it kind of allows you to just enjoy the fact that you can get excited about this new place and you don't feel like it's daunting or unfamiliar, but you feel like you can prepare. And I'm very much that kid who wants to prepare to pass the test. So I feel like I've been given this great textbook that I can study to prepare for entering that place, but also that it's not going to be a great big test in the end, it's not going to be a big exam that I need to dread. So I think that that's a really great way, like two hands to give with. So one is the very kind of personal experience of making you feel welcome, and the other is here are all the resources that you could possibly imagine that will tell you how to operate within our school.
Wow. I wonder if they personalize that actually, because that does sound like they've sort of done it for you. That's knowing you, that's a very you outline.
They know that's how Morgan works.
Exactly.
No, they've been really great. I think another thing that I really say is that already there's been a lot of outreach about professional development. So what professional development opportunities or routes do you want to take next year? And I think that's amazing. I think that right there, they're telling you that they care about the direction that you want to take as a teacher, and having that those routes for how you can kind of build yourself up in this professional learning community. that is fantastic, and it's given me a lot of faith that I've chosen the right school for me as well. So I think when you give staff a staff buddy, and you give them great handover meetings, and you give them resources as much as you can before they arrive, you're really empowering them and letting them and putting them in a position to succeed.
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree. I agree with you, Morgan. I think it is so helpful. The more information you can get, the more you feel, the sooner and quicker you feel part of that family.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I would generally be the same as yourselves. I would want to do a little bit of reading, I want a little bit of work so that I know, right, okay, I'm coming in and I'm ready for scenario X, Y, or Z. At least just the behaviour policy. I need to know the behaviour policy better than the children, because
Yes.
depending on the school, the kids might say, look, no, that's not the actual rule. And then you're on the back foot and you've only just started with them. So even just something as simple as that, it's going to put you at ease for that first lesson, that first 10 minutes.
And
of that
kids
first
will
lesson.
definitely do that. They will
100%,
definitely
why
frustrate.
wouldn't they?
New teachers, they like to wind up and trick, especially
Another
teenagers.
thing. There was one other thing when I started at my last school that was really great, is they did an organizational map with everyone's pictures. So it was everyone, all the key people that you needed to know from different departments. And it had really great pictures of all the teachers so that you could easily learn people's names, because that's a big thing. I will go through when I join a school, and it's easy on your MIS to find students' names, and I'll print off all the students' names when I arrive at a school, and I'll make sure that I can recognize them. And I'll test myself so I can get every single student names correct. So I can start that first week knowing all their names. But it's actually harder to do that with teachers. So I really appreciated it when the school gave me an organizational map with everyone's names and their pictures, so that I felt just as confident engaging with teachers and TAs, and really clear to know who you need to go to if you have an academic issue or a pastoral one. The nurses' names, the very first person that I learned their name of at a new school is the guy that makes the coffee as well. So whoever is working at the cafe, they need to know how I like my latte. So just things like that could actually make a huge difference.
Oh, Morgan, that is so funny. So you basically make yourself a little test, and you check that you've got everyone's name down. I picturing you now with an Anki, really quizzing yourself. Have I actually got
have flashcards. I have class flashcards so that I can memorize all my different students' names, because it's so important. If you get their names down, like behavior management, as soon as you know Johnny, I'm looking at you, Johnny, they recognize, oh, she knows who I am. I can't get away with this. So yeah, I think that's one of the things about, getting familiar with systems and platforms. You can do things like that when you arrive, so you feel on top of things. Knowing the policy before you arrive, so important. It makes you feel on top of things.
I think the good thing is a lot of schools, I know, put their policies on their websites as well. So that's really useful, that you can kind of have that browse. Even before you go for the interview, you can have that browse and have a look at, and is that the right fit for you? So you can make those judgment calls too.
Definitely. And if like me, you're not great with names, young man, yes. And just pointing and saying, yeah, go on, really excited to hear what you've got to say. That also works. If you don't want to make yourself a pop quiz.
Everyone loves a pop quiz. We're teachers. I'm
Oh,
going to
dear.
pause us here just to put on the news and give us a little break. So here is the news for June 19th.
Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Empowering education with Easy for You, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy for You, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out! Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading! Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
A lack of maintenance support is creating a two-tier higher education system, says a report in The Guardian. More than half of full-time students are working long hours in jobs to support themselves at university, according to a survey of UK undergraduates conducted by the Higher Education Policy Institute. The survey of 10,000 students found a record 56% had paid employment and were working an average of 14.5 hours per week. Experts said the lack of maintenance support was widening the divide between students who need to work to survive and their better-off peers who are free to concentrate on their studies. When combined with time spent attending lectures, classes and other study, students with part-time jobs are averaging a 48-hour working week, with some completing a 56-hour working week during term time. The average working time for adults in full-time jobs, according to the ONS, is just 36.6 hours per week. Higher Education Policy Institute's Rose Stevenson said the traditional model of higher education, with undergraduates studying full-time away from home, was becoming unattainable, and maintenance support would need to improve in order to support students with the cost of living. According to research, the cost of living crisis abruptly flipped the proportion of students mixing paid employment and full-time study. Before 2021, roughly two-thirds of students had no paid employment in term time. But this year, 56% of students said they had paid employment and were working longer hours than students in previous years. 3/4 said this was to meet their living costs, whilst 23% said it was to give financial support to families. 80% of students who had been in care were working in part-time jobs. The research also explored how working students completed their studies, with more being likely to use artificial intelligence programs and were more likely to view lectures online. Further details of the study and an additional report by the National Union of Students can be found online via the Guardian website. Money is also a feature in an article by Schools Week. It focuses on a response to a Conservative pledge to protect pupil funding in real terms. According to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, this could lead to the biggest school budget reduction for 50 years. The Conservative manifesto contains a promise to protect day-to-day school spending in real terms per pupil, but the IFS said this would work out as a £3.5 billion cut. This is because pupil numbers are due to fall by 400,000 by 2028. Meanwhile, Labour launched its manifesto with many media outlets covering its pledges on education. The National Education Union General Secretary welcomed the party's commitment to education, but said the proposals contained no indication that education cuts would be reversed. The NEU also expressed concern that Labour's pledge to recruit 6,500 teachers does not go far enough. The NASUWT union also commented on the recruitment pledge, saying it must go hand in hand with tackling the cause of the teacher retention crisis. Manifestos for all parties who have published them are available online. Away from the election, the BBC reports on an experiment undertaken by 10 teenagers from Salford. The teens swapped their smartphones for basic devices that could only make calls or send texts for a period of 5 days. The detox was run as part of a BBC project looking at the smartphone habits of young people. The report covers the positive impact the detox has, as well as the negatives. One of the participants dropped out after just 27 hours because not being online was really stressful. Some, however, found it liberating, as well as helping with sleep and engaging more with friends and family. Full details of the experiment and the responses of participants can be found on the BBC News website. Finally, as a follow-up on a story previously reported on Teachers Talk Radio News, Teesside University has announced it will help fund flights for Nigerian students hit by financial difficulties. Students from Nigeria were thrown off courses and ordered to leave the UK after a currency crisis left them struggling to pay tuition fees. The BBC Tees News website covered events and subsequent protests about the way students had been treated. This resulted in some intervention from the Nigerian government, but Teesside University has also told the BBC that it has re-enrolled some affected students and opened a travel fund, with a spokesperson saying, "We are working with a small group who do need to return to their home country and are opening an international relief fund to offer additional financial support for those unexpected travel costs." Some students have been told they can complete their studies from Nigeria or return to the UK at a later date to complete. Full details of the story can be found on the BBC News website, Teesside section. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News from Joe Fox.
And welcome back. You are with us at the Wednesday Twilight Show with Morgan and Todd. We have Kat Chowdhury with us, and we are discussing what to do now to prepare for the new year. And Kat, I was wondering if we could get into what we should do, not if we're moving school or moving roles, what should we be doing now if we are just looking forward to September and we want it to be the smoothest possible start? Because there's lots that we could be doing even if we're not stepping into a new role.
Yeah, I think obviously, like I said before, you need your rest. You need to have your break. I think everyone is crawling to that end of term right now. So have that time off. But I was always one of those people who I like to dedicate in all the holidays a week or 2 weeks max, where I would do all my planning for that term. Because it meant that during the actual term, when things get really, really busy, I wasn't spending all my time planning, because that is one of the big ones that takes up a lot of our time. And while I still had to tweak, because obviously I was planning for lessons that I didn't necessarily know the kids for yet, but you know, when you're, especially British curriculum, you know the exam board, you know the end game, you know the units you're going to be teaching, you know the topics. So you can kind of do a rough plan and get some of those PowerPoints ready, because then you can utilize your time during term to do those other things that we just don't have time to do. And I would do that in the summer holiday. I'd do that in winter break. I'd dedicate, you know, a couple of days of me just shutting myself away. I'm a mum of 3 kids. I know I can't spend my evenings planning and working. I can't spend my weekends planning and working. I have very young kids. So I make myself work that way. And it works for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but it worked for me because it meant that during the term, I didn't find I got as stressed, because other than, like I said, a few tweaks here and there, I wasn't spending hours and hours planning for the next day. And because we get to that point where we're so busy that we end up, oh, I haven't planned my lesson, and I have to rush and plan something that evening for the day before the next day. And I don't like that stress. Me personally, my anxiety goes through the roof. So, if you can be organized in that way, for some people that works really nicely, because it just takes that pressure off during term time. And then I had time to do my marking. I had time then to really go in and personalize my lessons more effectively. I had the time to read and do all the other things that I wanted to do during term time, because I wasn't as stressed about, the lesson side of things.
I think it's really interesting because you and Todd, I remember we were talking before the show, you both take time during the summer, and I'm very much, my summer is sacrosanct. So I do tend to completely be hands off, but during this kind of end of term, I am really, really, really active. And I think there's two things that I always try to prep myself on. And the first thing is curriculum. So doing a complete curriculum review and seeing, well, what do I need to pay attention to now? What's going to change next year? What's the planning that needs to be really fixed or altered or replaced? That is really key. And I found that in order to do that really well, you had to sit with your team and have a meeting within your department to say, okay, what is working and not working, and kind of saying, well, how are we going to divide up the planning so that we can attack that now or over the summer, and then we can revisit it and share when we meet up again in August and September. And then the second thing that I'd always kind of pay attention to is data analysis. So looking now and saying, okay, this is the end of the year. When we take a look at each cohort and we see the strengths and weaknesses within those cohort, what are the interventions that we can think of now that we can prepare for starting term one? So putting together the action plan for the department now, so that you feel really, really kind of confident that you have some great plans in place for the beginning of the year for how to deal with the different shapes of cohorts, or the students within cohorts that are going to need a special intervention. So whether that's an EAL group or an SEN group, or maybe it's year 7 boys who might need a little bit more attention, how are we going to kind of accommodate for that? So I think those are the two things that I think require meetings to kind of plan for the future. I think it's all about making sure that those meetings actually happen when I think we're all crawling towards the finish line. I am counting down the days till summer. But at the same time, I feel like it's so important that we kind of get this done now so that next year will be good. It's finding that well of energy.
It's a catch-22, because on the one hand, we are tired, and are we as productive in these last couple of weeks? Probably not. But then when we get to, midterm and the pressure's on, and, you've got exams coming, you've got map testing taking place, you've got all these other pressures, that's when you look back and think, oh, I wish I'd used that time more effectively. And it's almost like a vicious cycle, because you know that we need to use that time effectively, but then it gets to the end of the year and you're like, it's like, oh, I don't know if mentally I can. But I think it is really important. And I think, try as hard as it is to use that time effectively, because it will pay off later on when you're really stressed and you look back and think, I wish I had used that time. And I think if you get into that routine and that pattern, like I said, for me, it worked giving myself a week in the holidays, 2 weeks max of I'm shutting myself away. I'm just going to bash out all my PowerPoints because I know in the long run, this is going to be so much more beneficial for me, and it's going to help my well-being, my stress levels a lot more by doing that than me trying to kind of plow through the year, because it gets very overwhelming, and things get dropped on you at the last minute, and you plan, I'm going to spend this free hour working on planning for this subject, and then someone comes in and says, we need you for something else, or you need to go for cover. cover is the killer. You get put on cover and you think, oh, I was gonna spend this hour like planning this lesson, and then your anxiety goes through the roof, and then it just becomes this vicious cycle. So I would strongly recommend that, where you can, as tired as you are, you're never gonna get this kind of, not freedom, but this time that you have at the end of the year, especially secondary when all the exams are done.
Yes.
This is the ultimate time.
You want to have really, lesson planning is fun. Like, that's so much fun to plan really great lessons and have them completely, and have them ahead of time. You can actually think about them. Having that where they're not rushed, you can actually do great planning is really, really powerful. So I think taking advantage of that when you don't have those interruptions is key. Todd, you're just like Kat. Todd, I could not believe you.
I think
you would plan all summer if you could.
You're organized. Take that as a compliment, Todd. You're organized.
I think time expands. Tasks expands time given to them. So with planning, I would be, in the summer, I'm quite disciplined with that, but I would be doing things like rereading curriculum documents, reading around things. I'd be doing sort of extra reading, to upgrade my subject knowledge. But that's me. I like to be busy. I like to keep on with things. And I think what I was going to say, well, first of all, I don't think cover's the worst thing. I think interesting colleagues are the worst thing. That person that comes in and says, "Oh, great, would you rather be, I don't know, would you rather be a turtle with the brain of a man or a man with the brain of a turtle? Go away. I'll think about that. Stop being interesting. I'm really easily distracted." That's far worse than cover, because I can waste at least 3 lessons on something like that. But I think for me, when I'm honest with myself, I like to be busy. I like to be swimming like the shark that dies if it doesn't move. So I don't know if this is necessarily, I think it's about individuals, and I think it's about being honest with yourself. Do you actually need 6 weeks rest? You say you do, because that's what you've done previously, but then in term time you get really stressed. So have you reflected on that? Is that actually true? Do you need to sit on a sun lounger with something tropical in your hand for 6 weeks? Or could you maybe do that for 10 days and then just get on with some work? So, for some people, it might be that they do need 6 weeks.
I think if you compare it as well, like, we're in a very unique position in the fact that most professions don't get 6 weeks. And I think we do, like, but I know, I get, like, we deserve it 100%. As teachers, we do deserve that break. It is an intense term. Time is very intense. It's on the go. It's fast paced. These years have flown by each year. Even now, literally this morning, I was saying, I can't believe I've been here a year already. Like, it does fly by. So we do need those breaks. And I think that is important, that you get that rest. But I do agree with you as well, Todd, that, there are times in the year where you will thank yourself because you use that time of quiet more effectively. Personally, like I said, it's not for everyone, and I think that works for me. Whether that works for everyone, probably not, but I know that I'm less stressed throughout and it's taken me years. It's taken me years to actually come to this conclusion, and to kind of refine that. But over the years, I know that if I put in the time and I've put in that kind of week, 2 weeks of really focusing, planning my lessons, my stress levels for the rest of the year, and then I can open my door and have those conversations that take me down a rabbit hole. Yeah, because I have a little bit more.
The inane partridge conversations.
I have a little bit more freedom, and that's, for me personally, for my mental health, that works best for me, because I think you need to have those silly conversations, and you need to have that period of, do you know what, my mind's just not in it, and I just need a period of, I'm just gonna have a cup of tea this period. So I know I can do that because I've got the work done.
Can I make a suggestion?
And I think it's whatever works for you, because I think, for a lot of people, are they in that 6 weeks just thinking, oh God, there's so much to do, but that's a problem for future Homer? Or are they actually thinking, right, I actually am properly exhausted, like this is probably medically diagnosable how tired I am. I need to actually just look after myself for a period of time. So that I'd come back to that. It's that honesty. Are you just avoiding this because you really don't want to do it? Or do you actually just genuinely need the rest? And if you genuinely need the rest, do you then need to think, is my current operating system in term time maybe not that functional that I then need to spend all that time? But again, comes back down to that same thing. I don't want to repeat myself, but I do. Honest reflection and personal, 100%. Go on, Morgan, sorry.
Well, I think that you guys, like, you are both so intense, and I know how hard you work. You work hard during term time. You're also working hard during the kind of the summer break, which is fantastic. But I think a lot of the times it's about working smart. Some of the best things that you can do right now is sitting with your team and saying, listen, we all want to have a really great start to next year. We also all need a really great summer. So let's divide and conquer. There's no way that you should be taking on so much planning. Right now, it's who is in the best position to do what, when. So you're going to be doing this piece of planning. You're going to be taking on this pastoral curriculum. You're going to be taking on this training during the summer and bringing it back to our department. I think that when you are really smart about how you divide up that work now, you actually make it a lot easier for yourselves. Because I think as teachers, we tend to think I should be doing everything. And in fact, if I'm resting, I must be doing something wrong. So I think actually using this time to plan better is probably the best use of like this last week of term, because actually banging out all of your PowerPoints for term one right now, you're probably not going to be that productive. They won't be that good because you are tired. But planning who's going to be doing what is probably really smart. And it comes back to the fact that it is, for us, our first 100 days at any position, our first 100 days of the new year actually starts now. This is the countdown to August and September. And I'm sure like SLTs around the world, their timetables are done. The reporting systems are all up and running. Policies have been reviewed. So everything has to already be put in place so that teachers can then do their job, divide up their work at this point. So there's a lot that we can do now, but we should be doing it smart. We shouldn't just be saying, let's work harder all the time. Because there's a danger we tell ourselves we should.
Yeah, agreed, yeah.
And I think that's for me. Go on, Todd.
Go ahead, Kat.
I was just saying, so for me, that is me working smart, because for me, like the long game of, because I'll have my rest first of all, and then I won't do the planning and stuff until like a couple of weeks before we're going back. So like I'll still get my like 5 weeks of just sitting by the pool and enjoying. But I wouldn't do all my planning now because, like you said, I'm not in the right headspace, etc. right now. I would try and utilize this time as a team right now. But at the same time, I wouldn't expect others to do the same over the summer. Like, I wouldn't expect my team to be working all summer. I wouldn't expect that of them. That's how I work, and that's fine for me. But I don't expect everyone to be like me. I know that I have a very specific way of working, and but that doesn't mean that works for you guys as well. So I wouldn't expect
And just before we go into the ad break as well, I'd add to that, Kat, that, right now, one of the things that I find doesn't happen often enough is those conversations about I know that I'm inheriting little Johnny next year. What's he really like? How does he go on with, analysis, or how does he go on with X, Y, and Z? I find those conversations very rarely happen in schools. And actually, they can be some of the most powerful preparation conversations for the following year, because you then kind of enter the new year knowing a couple of things about little Johnny who maybe struggles in your subject area.
That does. But what bugs me is when you have the negative comments, and that's where it's not helpful. So having those conversations of, I'm inheriting, like I can see, he has an IEP, or I can see that this is his data, like, where are his strengths. They're really important conversations, and you're right, we don't hear those conversations. What we tend to hear is, good luck with, little Johnny. And instantly that's put that negative thought in your head, and your expectations are then lowered. which is a
Absolutely,
whole
yeah.
different thing to discuss.
You've got 10.8, good luck. You think, well, do you know what? I'm probably going to love them because the last time I had a similar class, I did love them. But no, you're right. They conveyor towards negativity. I'm conscious that we said we'd go to an ad break. Morgan, are we at that time?
Yeah, we'll go to our ad break and then we can talk about all the pleasures of transition.
Imagine having your own instructional coach available 24/7. Now you can with the Teaching How-Tos platform. This highly personalised social platform empowers busy teachers to learn and apply evidence-based teaching techniques, either independently, working collaboratively with their peers, or with our new AI assistant. The platform features over 160 visual guides to teaching techniques, designed to help you quickly and easily implement high-impact practices that boost student engagement and improve learning outcomes. Join over 200 institutions worldwide that are elevating their teaching practices with the How-To app. No gurus, just practical support anytime you need it. Interested in finding out more? Visit teachinghowtos.com and register for our next webinar.
Empowering education with Easy for You, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy for You, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out! Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading! Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
This
Okay, welcome back.
This is Teachers
our
Talk
sound just
Radio,
went off again,
and
sorry.
you are listening live.
There we go. So welcome back. We are talking about what we should be doing now to prepare for next year. And we just were discussing transition. So Kat, what does great transition handover look like? Because that is one of the number one things that we can do, especially at those key points in year 7, year 10, and year 12, to make sure that those students get the best start. And how can we make that, I guess, really smooth for them and smooth for us?
I think giving them a taste of what the next step looks like. We used to do a really nice thing where we would go down for year 6s. We would actually go down and we kind of created a unit. We did Iron Man, where we created a unit based on the skills that they would have to do in year 7. And we would go down and we would teach the first 3 lessons in grade 6 in their classrooms, and then they would then come up to our classrooms and see what it's like when they come into the kind of secondary setting, and then their teachers would then continue with that same unit so that they would finish on the Iron Man. And when they joined in year 7, the first baseline was on the Iron Man, so there was that kind of smooth it was familiar to them and that they'd had that opportunity to kind of explore what learning in secondary is like.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so much better than just a taster session. That's much more
Yeah,
extended.
and it was collaborative because it also meant that the year 6 teachers could see, because I don't know why, but there is a jump, a big jump between year 6 into year 7, and I think possibly because in primary there's a lot more focus on kind of creative writing and those kind of things, whereas we jump straight in with the analysis because you've got to do that for GCSE, so we kind of cram it down their throats from day one. So things like teaching them, Pester paragraphs and Peter paragraphs, and just kind of bringing in that language so they can see that that's the kind of thing that we use, and introducing them to that vocabulary. It was nice because it meant when they did join us, it wasn't, a total shock to the system.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of emphasis on the pastoral exchange, but I'm amazed sometimes there's this huge kind of divide, and getting that data and also that anecdotal information about, well, what is Johnny like? If you talk to him about football, does that bring him round? All of that kind of information that can be given from year 6 teachers to year 7, that primary secondary divide is actually massive. So creating as much interaction as possible seems like a great time of year and a great opportunity to do that. I really like that idea, though. We do like a pretty tiered transition at the school that I'm currently at. So it's kind of over 3 days, but over 3 days over 3 weeks. So one day over these 3 weeks, where they trial a whole bunch of different secondary classes. It makes them like go around the building. We do kind of treasure hunts around the building, so that they have to be able to find themselves and find different kind of like touchstone points in the secondary schools. So they become familiar, which is really fun. But I think a lot of the times the teachers don't get to spend that much time talking to each other. We spend a lot of time kind of making sure the students are navigating, but we don't necessarily sit down and spend as much time as we should, I think, with year 7 teachers talking to year 6 teachers to get a feel for those kids, and also for the curriculum that they have been involved with over the past like 2 or 3 years leading up to secondary.
Yeah, and I think it's always it's different when they go from year 6 to year 7. Year 7 teachers are not primary teachers. Year 6 teachers are not secondary teachers. So we naturally have a different mindset when we're teaching these students, and I think it's important to kind of understand how each other work and how each other kind of do teach, because I think sometimes we go in quite harsh with our year 7s. Bless them, they're fresh, they've just come up, they're so excited, and we're talking GCSEs at them from day one, whereas they've spent the last year with one teacher that they've really got to know. That teacher knows them inside and out, to all of a sudden they've got multiple teachers, and they're walking around the school totally lost, trying to find where they're supposed to go. And I think it is important that we have those conversations of how best to ease them into the secondary life.
Yeah, I think study after study after study has shown that like pupil well-being and kind of fragility and vulnerability tends to drop in year 7 because they don't have that connection to one teacher. They do feel disconnected, and they don't have the same opportunity to build rapport. So it's no wonder that we want to make sure the transition goes smooth and that they feel like they have a connection, especially to someone like their form tutor. And that the form tutor is actually that kind of point of call, and they do have that kind of connection with the year 6 teacher, so they can get all that important information and kind of start those kids off on the right foot, so that they do feel like they have a person, like at least one person that they can really go to when all of a sudden they're flung into secondary school with having a whole bunch of different subjects with a whole bunch of different teachers in a bigger building where they feel like a smaller person. So yeah, I think preparing ourselves that way and preparing our students makes a big difference.
My son, he's in EY1 and going up to EY2, so he's only 5. But his school did a day where you picked him up from the new exit of his school, because he's moving around to a different part of the school. And I know for him that was very exciting, that transition of you're now going to be in a new building. only across from where he was before, and this is potentially going to be your new class, and this is where you're now going to exit. You're going to exit out with the bigger kids, and for younger children as well. I think that's really important, that they visually see what the next step is going to look and where they're going to be.
Yeah.
You've been listening to
Todd, did you want to help give us some
listening to
closing
Teachers
thoughts?
Talk Radio.
This music keeps going off.
I thought you were just having sort of orchestra before I spoke. I thought that you'd finally understood my. I see I've received my bowl of 28 red M&Ms. I thought you'd finally also brought me my symphony for every time I speak. Yeah. Look, I think we've covered so much tonight. We've covered the idea about how teachers can transition to new environments, how teachers can evaluate what they've done. Have we given them all the answers in the world? No, but we've shown a few looks. And I think it's definitely made me reconsider some of the handover things that we do. In terms of student transition as well, just something as simple as that connection, Kat, that seems so obvious, and yet I wonder how many people are listening to this doing exactly what I've just done and thinking, why don't I already do that? So no, I think that's wonderful, that idea of having the Iron Man, and then it's also the baseline, because then there's that immediate connection with those students. I really liked as well our questions from the chat. It's certainly given me lots of food for thought as I think about my next transition in August. Morgan?
Yeah, Todd, you're actually going to a new school as well. It's really exciting, I think, to move to a new school, a new role. Kat, you've settled in beautifully, and you feel like I'm always amazed with what you do. Your crazy organization. You're entering next year very prepared.
I am. I'm very excited. It's, you first year, you're getting your feet on the ground, you're sussing it out, you're making your kind of your friends, and you're making your name, whereas next year it's go, and I'm so excited for then where it's gonna lead. So yeah, you guys in a year's time will be where I am looking back. And actually a really nice piece of advice that my principal gave me was, in those moments where you're feeling like everything's overwhelming and you don't feel like you're good enough and you're questioning yourself, he said to me, turn around and just look back and just look at all the things that you've done this year and be proud of yourself. So that piece of advice I'm giving to all of you guys. Take a moment, look back,
it's so lovely.
Look at your year, look at everything you've done, everything you've achieved, whether that's professionally, personally, whatever, and be proud of what you've done. Whether you're leaving a school and moving on to a new school, you would have had an impact, you would have made your mark, and it's something to be really proud of. So
that is such a nice note to end on. I think I needed to hear that.
Don't cry, Morgan, please.
I forgot who said it on my MPQSL, but they literally the same exact thought of that J curve. And what they pointed out is that you are actually going to go above your line now, whatever your normal is now. The change and the transition and the difficulties that you'll face and all the things that you overcome, you'll go above whatever your normal line is now through those challenges. So be ready for that, as well as being ready for all the difficulties. And that a really nice way of ending, Kat, is with that thought of yours there, and that idea of that initial J curve that we all experience in a new school. Right. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kat, and thank you, Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kat. Such a lovely guest. Everyone have a really lovely evening, and we can't wait to see you in another 2 weeks' time. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.